Good morning, everybody. Well, this is Carpo again, and I'm making this video as kind of a continuation of my last video. No, it's not. I should say, I'm making this because I didn't want to include this in my last video. Because I feel like it's just something so interesting, it doesn't need to be thrown in with tobacco and stuff. Yeah, I was talking about DNA and how RNA helps to, I believe, repair and replenish DNA damaged strands. And from what I understand, these little factories, if you want to call them that, within our cells that take DNA, they run the string through and they find any error with the DNA and they correct it. And what happens with radiation poisoning is that the cell has been so damaged, or multiple cells have been so damaged that they can't be corrected in time, and they reproduce those cells. And this is what cancer is, in a sense. Cancer is a mutated cell. It's caused by DNA damage. And I think one of the most amazing things about this idea is that I believe in what they call, I guess, the galactic wave theory, super wave theory maybe. A lot of people talked about it, and there are a lot of guys that speak about it, and I know people will send me references. I've already heard all these guys, Michael Tellinger and all these different speakers that talk about these things, and they all, to me, in my opinion, they're off the deep end. They've lost touch with reality because they've wrapped themselves up so much in the what ifs that they've missed the what is, which is that we just don't know the answers to some of this stuff. But what I'm talking about is the idea that in the universe, what you might call the Word of God is merely an energy force. What the Bible or other texts describe as the Word or Om is a force. The Word, the energy, and they believe it emanates from the galactic center of the Milky Way. So if you want to consider it, this is the way I see it, and I'm very speculative here, but we are in charge of our own destinies. But the Son, or the Father, which is in the center of our solar system, is our God, merely because it shines its light upon us. It's a very obvious metaphor, and one that people who still attach to the idea of this archetypal God, it's just this idea of God in a white beard is just ludicrous to me. I mean, it's so obvious to me that the Son is God. But seeing it as the only God is, of course, means what about the universe, the bigger picture? Well, that's why the Son is the representation of, I should say, Jesus is the representation of the Son. And that's why he's the Son of the Father, because he's a small God within this solar system. But the larger God, the God himself, whatever you want to call it, emanates from the center of the galactic, center of the Milky Way. This is the idea. Just kind of a long way to explain it. So every so often, every so many thousands of years, it may be during the precession, it may be during one of the 5,000 or one of the 21,000 or one of the 80,000 year cycles, there's a time when this wave of energy emanates at a stronger pulse or a different pulse in these cycles over and over. When it hits this point, when it goes into the more intense pulses, or ones that resonate with our DNA, is what I'm getting at. This is when humanity goes through these supposed ages of enlightenment. Many people theorize that since we are entering the age of Aquarius, and people say we're in it right now, I believe what I've read is that we don't enter the age of Aquarius actually till 2150 or something, but it's a transitional process. But that all these things do mean something astrologically, that we are in signs, but it means more than just, a fish representing Pisces, or, the Gemini or scales. It's not the symbols or the archetypes. It's the idea that things change over time. And the question is, how are we affected by this? Many of the theories say that back in time when the pyramids were built, let's say we were in some age of enlightenment, that will return again. And I don't know about that. I don't know if this is true or false. I do believe that ancient cultures have risen and fallen on this planet for, at least a couple million years. maybe longer. Who knows? I really don't know. Maybe not even that long. Maybe it was just 100,000. Maybe the pyramids were built 60,000 years ago. None of this, we don't know. But what we do know is that our DNA changes, and we change with it. And what drives evolution? And this is kind of the long way of what I'm getting at, which is when people say, well, DNA just replicates and it just turns into whatever it turns into, I always ask, who is the directorate of this change? And what is the intelligence of cells to know when DNA is improperly put together? With all the different makeups of people and all the different possibilities for people, body types, hair colors, and then just structure in general of the DNA, what cells make the decision that, oh, well, this one's not going to work out, we don't want this? In other words, the miniature world is smarter than we give it credit for. It thinks for itself. It works on an energy level we don't understand. The way that our cells work together as a team, how you can take a cell and put it in with, you take a stem cell, put it in with some other cells, and it will say, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. It takes on the job. It's just like putting a person in a factory with a bunch of workers and saying, okay, take this job on, and the person absorbs the job and turns into that job. You know, that's what stem cells do. They're amazing things. Cells themselves are just amazing things. People don't give them enough, the idea enough credit. And people are out talking about the quantum world and, quantum physics and quarks and particles and matter and whether or not electrons exist when, the lowly simple cell is an amazing thing. Why did it come into existence? I wrestle with this idea for so many years because I can't seem to ever convey it to people when I say, what is the purpose of evolution? I say, well, it just happens. I say, well, this is from a non-religious standpoint. I say, well, it just happens. I say, well, but what's directing it? I say, nothing. It just does. Then why does everything fit so perfectly together? And then it gets into the old religious argument. People start saying, oh, you're just using the argument that since you don't understand it, it must be, some, woo-y thing. No, I think that the more you understand it, the more you realize it is a woo-y thing. That this universe is a woo-y thing. I don't know how else to put it. Sometimes I just open my eyes and go, holy shit, this is just amazing. And I stop myself and say, well, what am I comparing this to? It's just like when people tell me, life is crazy. I say, but what else is there? Or this world is crazy. I say, compared to what other world? When you think of things that way, you start to realize that, okay, everything is just perfect. And I almost feel like I'm deluding myself sometimes because I look around and everything just fits. Everything just works. And I get very, very deeply into the thought of nature. And then I think of people who are totally missing it, who don't ever observe anything, and that maybe we get stuck behind our PCs or stuck in an office all day, or maybe just in our houses watching television, whatever it may be, that we've just kind of separated ourselves from that. And the question, I guess, is what are we evolving to? And if there's this galactic superwave, this energy force, does it really alter DNA? Does it put out microwave energies that are similar to, what might damage our DNA, but yet repair it in a way? In other words, it would be like cellular programming from an external source. I drew an entire chart of it about 3 years ago. I still have it out there. It's like shows the sun, the planets, and the center of the Milky Way, and all these different ideas of how they, my idea of how they interact with each other, or just a theory, I think drawing things out really helps me to get a better look at it and how things work. But I still have no clue. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that I've drawn out these graphs so I can get, understand the superwave idea. I don't. It's just an interesting thought. Basically that the right signal put out, your radio picks that up, okay? The right signal put out, your cells pick that up. Your DNA are like little antennae. So is there a signal that we're receiving constantly that's telling us how to grow, that's giving us the blueprint for life, that when you make love and you have a baby from it, that baby is a structure somewhat like you, somewhat like your mom, somewhat like their dad, somewhat like all the way back down the lineage of people. It has a little bit of everything, a little bit of everybody, but it's still perfect. It remains a structure that works, the human body, and this is just one among billions of creatures. Pretty cool stuff. All these creatures, not just these creatures, but all these cellular organisms and plants and animals, they all exist in this perfect structure, all intertwined, interlaced, work together. Bees that look like flowers, which look like owls, which look like bats and dogs and cats and everything else you can imagine that just works together. The symbiosis of life. If it's all by chance, it's one hell of a chance.